Welcome back into Lettermen Row, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tim May on the other side of the screen. It's Spencer Holbrook. You already know that because we're into the postseason now, but we're not even going to talk about the postseason. We're going to talk about next season because the Big Ten decided to release its 2025 football schedule on Wednesday. Tim May and I will talk about it. Tim, you've seen the schedule.
Yes.
You know the schedule now. What was the number one thing that you took away when you saw the Ohio State 2025 football schedule?
What? No Bette Midler? Number two, no return match with Oregon. I think to treat the fans correctly, the fans who ultimately pay the freight in one form or fashion, you gotta have the return match. I mean, even the SEC understands that, when you look at their future schedule for 2025. So no return match with Oregon. That's way too bad. That's television, big time television inventory that it's just sitting on the shelf and nobody's going to be able to use it. So I don't understand that. They are getting a return match with Penn State, right? So to speak, back to Ohio Stadium. Traveling to Washington, where I've been a few times covering Ohio State, several times covering Ohio State, and then a home game with UCLA. So they will have, played three of the four teams that joined the Big Ten from the Pac-12 by the end of next year. But why not go ahead and throw USC into the mix next year in some form or fashion for Ohio State? I mean, that's still a traditional, really nice blue blood matchup. So kind of like dumbfounded a little bit by that, because you take Texas off the home schedule. And I know you've got Penn State, but you take Texas off this home schedule in 2025, and they open with Texas on August 29th. Boy, you don't have much going for you from the standpoint of real appeal. I think the Penn State game obviously has its own appeal, but then Penn State and Texas, and that's it from a home schedule standpoint. Yeah, I know they host Grambling. Can't believe that one. And they host your mighty Ohio U Bobcats, but I know you don't want me to talk that long on this, but that's what stands out about it is Texas off the home schedule, Penn State, who they always beat, off the back on the home schedule. Take those two off, you don't have much.
Yeah, my big takeaway was between September 13th and November 1st, they're at home once. That's 6 weeks where we'll only be in the horseshoe once, and that's on October 4th against Minnesota. That's disappointing, Tim. You're not getting a single mid-October game, which I think is the perfect Ohio Stadium weather. You're not getting any of those. You're getting really, really hot on August 30th against Texas, and that's going to be a massive showdown. We already know that. You're getting Grambling in Ohio. Okay, you've got to have your tune-up games, I guess. Then you're idle. But like you said, the home slate, there's a lot left to be desired there. November home games against UCLA and Rutgers. That's a BYOJ kind of game there. Bring your own juice, because I'm not sure what the juice will be like in Ohio Stadium for those two games after, Penn State on November 1st, then Purdue on November 8th. You've got two more home games, and then all of a sudden you're at Michigan. Like it doesn't – the home slate is very disappointing, but I guess when you're – how do I say this? You're paying for Texas. And when you're paying for these season ticket holders are paying for Texas. And even Penn State, which is a big sell in its own, because that's a traditional Big Ten rivalry for the last 30 years, and it's going away on a permanent basis. It's not going to be an every year thing after 2025. You are not really paying for the Penn State game. You're definitely not paying for Rutgers and UCLA, and you're not paying for Ohio and Grambling. You're paying for that Texas game. But after the Texas game, there's really only one more home game that's worth its weight in salt. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I agree with you. So the two things that kind of stick out were the lack of marquee home games after August 30th, which is tough to swallow. And then the 6-week stretch between September 13th and November 1st, it might even be 7 weeks, where Ohio State's just only at home one time. That's not great. Now, what I will say,
only play 3 games in October, right? If I remember correctly. I'm just going by memory. I don't have it called up, but
It is 3 games in October, yes.
Yeah.
And the 4th week of October is the idle week before Penn State. Now, I will say, as we get into another topic here, 2 of the biggest games on the schedule, and I know Washington's 6-6 this year, but a road trip out to Seattle is a huge deal. Ohio State is coming off a bye when it goes to Seattle. That's a big deal for this program, to be able to have the off week and then get into a road trip where you have to travel across the country. So Ohio State will be off of a bye week when it goes, or off of an idle week, pardon me, when it goes to Washington. Ohio State will also be off of an idle week when it plays Penn State. So those are 2 advantageous spots for the Buckeyes. Tim, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, and the trip to Washington, I mean, that's always a tough place to play. I know they've had their rebuilding pangs this year, as they knew they would going into this season based on everybody they lost, including their coaching staff. But that is a tough road trip, no matter how you shot it, because it's a long trip, and then it's going to be an improved Washington team, you believe. But yeah, it's just too bad. I don't know how. The great thing about the NFL is when they do their scheduling, that from one week to the next, no matter what your schedule looks like, from one year to the next, you're playing an NFL team each week, no matter whether it's home or on the road. And you've got your division rivals. You'll be playing 2 times each year. That's what differs from a college schedule, because, like you said, you take the Michigan game. The Michigan game is going to be as huge as ever next year, but it's on the road because it's Ohio State's fighting, as everybody knows, a 4-game losing streak in that game. But it is what it is at this point. I think they could have done a lot better. And this is no offense to Grambling, but then Grambling, I mean, if anything, you'd want to play Grambling in Ohio before you play Texas, but you got to play Texas when you can play Texas from a joint scheduling standpoint. So, I think this schedule just kind of lays there when you look at it to a certain extent.
Yeah, let's talk about these road trips, Tim, because the road trips are fun for media. I will admit that. I'm very excited for these road trips because it's at Washington. There's a Wisconsin road trip in there. That's a great place for football.
Yep.
Those are the 2 headliners, but the other road trips, so it's at Washington, they're at Illinois, they're at Wisconsin, at Purdue, and at Michigan. At Illinois and at Wisconsin are back-to-back weeks in October. I think that is just a brutal stretch for Ohio State, not because Illinois and Wisconsin are going to be more talented than Ohio State, but Illinois is like the new Wisconsin in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
9-3 this year under Brett Bielema, which makes sense. They're coached by Brett Bielema. 9-3 this year. They run the football really well. They play really good defense. They're very, very physical. And Ohio State's going to play at Illinois, come back to Columbus on Sunday morning, get ready, and then go out to Madison to play Wisconsin the next week. And then they've got an idle week after that. So you get a little reprieve between that Wisconsin road trip and the Penn State game. But I will say, despite the opponents maybe not being up to Ohio State level, those are really 2 tough games to play back-to-back on the road. That stretch there, which starts even with a home game against Minnesota, which is a big physical football team with PJ Fleck, those are 3 straight games that have my attention, even though the opponents may not be like the marquee matchups.
Yeah, and both of them will be physical, as you pointed out, physical contests. I mean, They're going to take something out of your team no matter what, and so that's what stands out about those. Are those the garden spots of the world to go to? Not necessarily. I mean, Champaign-Urbana is kind of I've always thought that, it kind of reflects the way you show up there. Your attitude kind of reflects the site, meaning it's kind of a ho-hum city, ho-hum stadium for the most part. Sometimes teams play that way. You can't beat the jump around at Wisconsin from the standpoint of going into the 4th quarter. But what kind of Wisconsin team they're going to be running into, we can talk about this ad nauseum one way or the other. The main thing that stands out to me about that is it's going to be it's like playing the black and blue division of the Big Ten is really what it's all about. And so it's going to be a physical chore no matter how those games turn out.
Yeah, I agree. And then obviously November is bookended, like I wrote on lettermenrow.com. It is bookended by the date with Penn State in the Horseshoe.
Yep.
you're at Purdue, which I don't think Purdue's going to be that good, but that's not a game that you're going to sleepwalk through because it's Ohio State at Purdue, and we know what.
But the new coach rebuilds it like he did at UNLV. I mean,
Yeah,
Kurt Cignetti has proven he proved it at UNLV. But Kurt Cignetti's proven to all other teams in the Big Ten you can transform your team over a year, overnight almost, and so that'll be interesting to watch how Purdue plays under its new head coach and the players, mainly the players they bring in from the portal.
Yeah. So you just never know, but it's against Penn State, then it's at Purdue. Middle of November, man, sending UCLA to Columbus in the middle of November sounds pretty daunting for the Bruins. Then it's Rutgers at home and then at Michigan. Now, I will say I looked at Michigan's schedule. November 22nd, Ohio State versus Rutgers in the Horseshoe. November 22nd, Michigan at Maryland in College Park. So Michigan gets that road trip the week before the Ohio State game, and then they host the Buckeyes. Like, obviously, we don't have to go through what the game means on November 29th. It'll be Ohio State trying to get back on the winning side for the first time in many tries after the debacle that we saw a couple weeks ago now. But that November is very intriguing to me with Penn State, Purdue to kick it off, and then the trip to Michigan to end it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, you got to figure the Penn State game is going to be the pivotal game on how good this team really is. I'm talking about in 2025. Obviously, the trip to Washington, like I keep saying, is going to be better. That's a long trip to make, but I think Ohio State will have the wherewithal to get past that. The big question is, by the time they get to Penn State, who is Ohio State's starting quarterback? How cemented will the lineups look at that point? And that'll set your stretch run up for the remainder of the regular season. But at Michigan, that's probably where this team deserves to be playing next year to get the 4-game losing streak off its back, is doing it in the big house and kind of getting things a little bit back to order.
Yeah. Well, for the record, Tim, you talked earlier in the video about Oregon not making the return trip to Columbus. The Ducks do make the return trip to Columbus in 2026.
Yeah.
So it's not immediate.
Not next year.
It's not immediate, but they will in 2026. Ohio State also goes to the Coliseum to play USC in 2026. But I guess that's a video for it this time next year.
Yes.
We're talking 2025 and home games and different environments that Ohio State's going to play in. Ohio State will play in the first ever college football playoff home game at the Horseshoe on Saturday, December 21st. Go to gametime.co, use the Game Time app, use the Game Times Picks feature to organize the way that you see your tickets, get the cheapest tickets possible on Game Time, on the Game Time app and gametime.co. There are currently tickets for Ohio State, Tennessee for $223 to $227. There are tickets as high as being in the thousands. And if you want to pay that much, you can, but you can get in the door for less than $300 now on the Game Time app and at gametime.co. And if you find a cheaper ticket, which I don't think you will, on a different ticketing app after you bought your ticket in Game Time, if you find the same row, same section ticket on a competing ticketing app, you send it to Game Time after you bought your ticket on Game Time, they'll refund you 110% the difference. So that is a good deal there. And right now you can use the Game Time app and gametime.co. Use the code ON3, that's right, ON3, for $20 off your first purchase in the Game Time app. Save you a little bit of extra money, and you might even get in the door for just a shade over $200 for the first ever Ohio State home game in the college football playoff. It's going to be historic. It's going to be awesome. The Buckeyes are rocking the special uniforms. Ross Bjork said on Thursday morning there's going to be a drone show. They're doing some stuff with the Scarlet LED lights. Ohio State fans, the college football playoff brackets are officially set. With a win over Tennessee a week from Saturday, the Buckeyes will head to Pasadena to face the top-seeded Oregon Ducks in the Rose Bowl and in a rematch of that classic game from October. Now it's time to start thinking about your travel arrangements. Reynolds Travel, the go-to headquarters for Buckeyes Bowl travel for 50 years, is ready to take you to the heart of the quarterfinal playoff action. Reynolds packages feature round-trip air transportation from Columbus, deluxe hotel accommodations, transfers from the airport, Buckeye Bash events, and game travel, as well as game tickets, all under the eye of Reynolds' seasoned event staff. They're always on hand to make sure your bowl game travel is as memorable and as carefree as possible. For those of you traveling to LA on your own, you can still get in on the Buckeye playoff action by selecting a hotel package that includes all the features exclusive of the air travel in case you're traveling without Reynolds Travel. Visit ReynoldsTravel.com in the coming days for complete details, or call 866-880-0577. That's 866-880-0577. ReynoldsTravel.com. Start thinking about that trip to the Rose Bowl if the Buckeyes can get past Tennessee next weekend in the Horseshoe. I think it's going to be awesome, Tim, and I can't wait to get there, and I hope to see a lot of Ohio State fans there.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's going to be interesting no matter what, no matter how things turn out. But the fact that Ohio State's going to, just from a support standpoint, it's going to turn out and try to make it more than just a football game is quite interesting. We all know the Tennessee fans travel basically probably as well as Ohio State fans do. There's going to be more orange in that stadium than maybe you think there's going to be, because they will figure out a way to get in by one form or fashion. And game time is going to help. Is going to help a lot of that, I'm sure. But hey, real quick, going back to that 2025 season schedule, though, what really, like you brought it out to begin with, there are 8 weeks, like you said, including the off week, starting with the off week on the 20th to then playing at Purdue on November the 8th. There are 8 weeks where Ohio State plays at home just twice. I mean, it's hard to keep even kind of momentum going, right? Right during a schedule like that. I think that's what you were alluding to. And wow, that's just not. I don't know how your computer spits that out. I'm talking about the Big Ten or whoever spits the schedule out, spits it out, and comes out with something like that.
Yeah, it's almost like I was scratching my head at this time last year when they released the Big Ten schedule, and Oregon was playing 8 straight conference games before it finally got a bye week.
Yeah,
which didn't seem fair to me, to be honest. I will say that part of the 8-week stretch where there's only 2 home games, part of that includes 2 idle weeks. So Ohio State will be at home for half of that stretch.
Right.
But
I'm just talking about home games. It's like
you're only getting 2 home games.
Yeah. That's just a long time to go in between appearances in your home stadium as far as playing goes. But anyway, it is what it is. We'll deal with that next year.
Well, and to be honest, Tim, if Ryan Day is back the way that Ross Bjork talked about on Thursday, which I did want to get your thoughts on before we get out of here, then it might be better that they're playing a couple more road games in that stretch just to feed off of that away crowd, because they seem to be a little tense when the home crowd is tense. So maybe there's something to chew on there. I do know that, putting a bow on this discussion about the 2025 schedule, I'm not going to wish away the next 9 months of my life, but man, Ohio State, Texas in the Horseshoe, with all the star power that will bring from, potentially a guy like LeBron being there like he was for the Notre Dame game a couple years ago before the Lakers season started, to, Matthew McConaughey doing, having Hookem and all right in the Horseshoe. Like, it's going to be awesome. I think the stars are going to come out for that. It's obviously going to be a massive recruiting weekend for Ohio State.
It was awesome. It was awesome in 2005, man. Vince Young and Texas, first time they ever played, and which is crazy when you think about it. And then they played in 2006 at Austin, and then played 2008 in the bowl game, the Fiesta Bowl. They played 3 times in 4 years, which is crazy, keeping in mind that they hadn't played forever before that. So it's going to have big time marquee value, just like it would have had this year. And because no matter what, Ohio State's going to have a very good team, and so is Texas. But it could be 2 new starting quarterbacks. That'll be what's very interesting to watch.
Yeah, hopefully it's Arch Manning against potentially Julian Sayin. That would be really awesome to have 2 former 5-star prospects. Obviously, if that's Arch's first start, beyond like the couple spot starts he made for Quinn Ewers, if it's his team and that's his first start, I'd have to imagine that the Manning family dynasty will also be in the Horseshoe for that.
How could they not be? None of them's playing playing pro football anymore.
Yeah, so we're getting the Power T versus the Block O on next Saturday, and then we're getting the Burnt Orange against the Block O and Hookem against the Block O the very following year.
Yeah,
in 2 straight home games for Ohio
Hey, who
State.
knows? Texas and Ohio State could still meet this year, man.
I know, but I'm saying in back-to-back home games for Ohio State, it's going to be, well, actually, let's just say 3 straight home games for Ohio State, which I think Ohio State fans are a little spoiled with this. It's Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State, Tennessee, and Ohio State, Texas, no matter what. Like that's a remarkable run of 3 straight home games that are all 3 individually worth the price of admission, especially if you go to Game Time and get the deal. So
yeah. By the way, Grambling coming to town. This is interesting. I think it'll be the first meeting Ohio State Grambling. I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
But they did play in the Eddie Robinson Classic way back when. They named a preseason. People don't remember this, maybe some folks, but you used to have preseason games like the Kickoff Classic, Pigskin Classic, the Eddie Robinson game was played here. And but this will be the first time the team that Eddie Robinson rose to fame coaching will be playing in Ohio Stadium. And of course, Grambling has magnificent band. You just hope he doesn't get put on suspension like Florida A&M's band did before it came to Ohio Stadium, and so it didn't get to perform. So there you go. I mean that'll be a walkover point spread, but the Grambling band will be worth the price of admission.
You know what, Tim? I'm going to save this conversation for Friday because we're going to have Lettermen Live presented by Wendy's on Friday. We'll talk about what Ross Bjork said on Thursday, his comments about Ryan Day, his comments about the horseshoe atmosphere.
Well, you can bring up one thing he said. I mean, I think it's salient. It's newsworthy.
Well, I mean, this is live discussion, folks. We're going to have we're going to have an hour live stream, Tim, and we're going to have another one before Tennessee. So we got a lot of time to talk about a lot of topics. We'll go ahead and cut this one now, and we'll get it back into it on Friday with Tim May, the 41-year vet, with me, Spencer Holbrook, with you guys, the audience. We love that you guys appreciate the show. We love that you watch the show. Make sure to like the video below if you do like it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get alerted every time Tim May, the 41-year vet, and I go live or produce one of these videos. And we'll see you guys over at lettermenrow.com. And, of course, next Saturday, we'll see you in the horseshoe for Ohio State, Tennessee, the first round of the college football playoff. Until then, we're going to be in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center a couple times. Full coverage of the college football playoff, Ohio State versus Tennessee, on the way at lettermenrow.com.